Happy Saturday. What is the next move in crypto? Is it a bear market? Is it over? Or is this a pause in the bull market? I will answer these questions. A lot of people wanted to go back to the good old days in crypto where things were insanely volatile and you could buy Bitcoin for $500. Well, what people don't realize is that when you have an environment like that, the wild volatility and the FUD that you see, Bitcoin FUD is back. Don't believe me? I'm going to scare you right out of your pajamas when I tell you about some of this stuff, because you need fear, but you also need FUD to create a bottom. And if it doesn't create a bottom, it creates a crash. It creates FTX. And believe it or not, all those guys out there with those big short fantasies, like, oh, I can't wait to short it and have it all go to zero. Yep, they are out there. They are after Michael Saylor in the biggest way, which is bullish, right? Because when we start talking about Michael Saylor getting liquidated, that usually happens at a bottom or near a bottom. So that's good, but you can't believe the extent to which they're after Michael Saylor. It's unbelievable. And we will talk about countering this FUD. Odds of a Fed rate cut in December are falling, probably because food prices are out of control. They didn't want to release the inflation numbers, so they're assuming no rate cut in December. Okay. We'll see, because the Fed is meeting with the banks, having a little chit-chat about what exactly is going on, which is a stupid headline in a way, but we'll get to that. There's big headline: Fed meets with banks. Like, what, the telephone doesn't work? Or, we had to go into the building to talk to you and create a news headline? Come on. It's a signal. It's a signal that they're about to just flood the market with liquidity, just to stop whatever problem there is with the banks. So I'm giving it all away. Warren Buffett buys Google. Can I tell you what the Google chart looks like? It's like this. Straight up. Bottom left to top right. I thought Warren Buffett only bought stuff when it was down. Why is Warren buying it when it's up? I thought that's why he sold all that Apple stock. Yeah, okay. Well, he's doing that because Google's had sentient AI for years. They had to shut it off. They had a whistleblower. They do. And they're coming out with Gemini 3, which, I'm assuming that is going to be the awakening. That's probably going to be artificial general intelligence, which is why Warren is long. I'm guessing. It's funny. He didn't want to touch the Google IPO, as I remember, in 2004. But, $4 trillion in value later, it's much more attractive. Now, this is relevant to crypto because, again, Bitcoin and the decentralized AI universe, because if you look at altcoins this morning, they're just dying to rally. Web3 and AI, I know everyone's like, sell all these altcoins, they're exit pumps. I think there's a whole subsector of crypto, privacy and AI, that are just dying to rally, because this AI trade is about to it's going to explode. Like, they're racing each other to build data centers in Texas. Google's doing 3. It's enormous. It's enormous what's going to happen, right? When they get the hardware to run the software, you're going to see things accelerate to the point, and you're going to ask yourself, why were we selling cryptocurrencies in November of 2025 when everything went machine and robot and blockchain, and there was no way to verify who owned what or how to transfer value without the record of the blockchain, or there was no way to do anything without someone knowing, without the privacy blockchains, which is why Zcash is just totally exploding, and it's probably going to take Monero, the whole sector. And actually, there's a Zcash black swan scenario, which we'll talk about as it relates to Michael Saylor. Now, let's all sit down, right? Try a little decaf And let's go through all the FUD. You wanted to go back to 2016? Here we are. Back then, every time the market was going to go down, every time it would go down, it would be like, oh my God, China, where all the Bitcoin mining was going to shut the miners down. Bitcoin was going to be illegal over there. They were going to shut down the whole network. It was over. Can't tell you how many times we had to deal with China FUD. And then there's more FUD that, crypto is only for bad guys, right? Crypto is for nefarious actors. It's fake. It's not real money. It never ended. And when the market would go down and stay down, this FUD, they would just stack it a mile high. And that is exactly what they're doing right now. So, I have this tweet here where I have this just total rant by this legacy guy who writes this whole thread about how Michael Saylor's operation, where he borrows money using legacy markets and buys Bitcoin. Now, right now, Michael Saylor's company Strategy is worth less than the amount of Bitcoin that it holds. So the company is worth less than the Bitcoin that it holds. Kind of bizarre, right? It's probably because of the leverage, or the market is just like short sold this thing to death, right? It's being used as a hedge against some of the other instruments that he's issued, whatever. The Michael Saylor liquidation fantasy has to appear for crypto to bottom. I don't care what fear, greed is. I don't care. You have to have Michael Saylor's going to get liquidated to really make a bottom. And it's everywhere. Now, here's the thing about Michael Saylor getting liquidated that these guys in legacy don't really understand. They think Michael Saylor and Strategy are a bunch of guys, I don't know, they're like living in their mom's basement and they have a ledger with, 600,000 Bitcoin on them and they play video games and no. People, that's got to be run by a trading desk who is connected to and does transactions with all the other big OTC trading desks. Binance, Galaxy Digital comes to mind, Coinbase, Kraken, all of these big trading houses. So do you think that anything goes on in the Bitcoin market without Michael Saylor's trading desk knowing about it? Honestly, do you think that these guys just fly in the blind like, oh yeah, man, we're just going to get long and carry on? Folks, there's guys probably hedging some of that position before it drops, right? They probably knew that all these big hedge funds were starting to cover their trades. They know these things. How do you think they issued all of these different stock instruments? They're connected with investment banks. They know what's going on with their stock and they know what's going on with Bitcoin. So, okay, Bitcoin goes to 60K and Michael Saylor gets liquidated and then Bitcoin goes to 20 and everybody can have their giant big short fantasy. But don't you think that there's guys managing at least some of that risk or hedging or protecting the company? I would think so. So Michael Saylor disaster stuff, it's also assumed that MicroStrategy has gone down and Bitcoin's going to follow. Now, MicroStrategy used to be a really good indicator for Bitcoin, and it does make a nifty chart. However, Michael Saylor FUD seems rather high, especially since Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia, all hit $4 trillion in value with a price earnings ratio of 40. Like when I was in stocks, a good price earnings ratio was 17. It's now 40. That's Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia. Phones, computers, and chips. $4 trillion. Each one of those companies is worth more than all of crypto. And the Google data center story is relevant because these guys are going to spend themselves senseless because they know whoever loses this race is done. So whatever they have to spend, they're going to spend. And it would be pretty funny if Toby's prediction that the decentralized world is the only place to get AI online, that all of this spending that they're going to do may not get them what they want. Very interesting. Now, let's talk about not getting what you want. Here's a question that I got for everybody. What happens if everybody wants to be long Bitcoin? They are long Bitcoin. They're just long the wrong Bitcoin. In other words, if there's something wrong with Michael Saylor's trade, it's not that he's long Bitcoin. It's not, right? Because his trading desk will protect him from getting completely liquidated. You know, they might crush the market hedging if they have to, but they're not going to let him get liquidated. But what happens if the upside is in stuff like Zcash? Zcash is acting like the Bitcoin of old. I mean, it acts like Bitcoin of old in every aspect. I mean, it'll go up, it'll hit resistance at 700, it'll come back down and crash to 400. Everyone buys the dip. Then there's, say, a 13 top, right? That's what's going on in Zcash right now. We're going to see if a topping signal even matters. Because if nobody cares about a topping signal, it's going to 1,000. Right? Arthur Hayes is just like screaming on Twitter, and he should be. Because these guys know what happens if something like this gets loose, a la 2015 or 2016. Gann theory says, you know, the fifth year of any decade, you can have big things happen. It would be pretty funny if the whole world was long Bitcoin and they were long the wrong Bitcoin. So Bitcoin just kind of slumps or sits there or goes back to 100 and hangs out, and Zcash 50Xs. That could happen. That could seriously happen. Right. And just freak everyone out. Like crypto could go full cyberpunk. The FUD that you should pay attention to about Bitcoin is that Zcash and other forms of crypto could become total monsters. I would even throw Ethereum in there, believe it or not. In other words, look, everyone thinks altcoins are dead. But they're not looking at altcoins as other forms of money. They're not looking at altcoins as decentralized artificial intelligence. They're like, oh, wow, Google's going to build 3 huge data centers. Okay, great. Terrific. Is there anywhere else you can have AI? Can you like decentralize the computing power? You know, the number of projects in things like cloud, decentralized AI, data sharing. I mean, this stuff has been built and has been there for years. No one wants to touch it. It's like, I can't get enough of $4 trillion stocks, but there's all this stuff here and no one wants it. And that's the funny thing about like the transition to the bear market. Folks, it's been a bear market except for the election last year. The election was a short squeeze in alts because alts went all the way up and all the way back down again. And Bitcoin just kind of had a nice run, which is now correcting. It's like, it's the bear market. Well, when was the bull market? Was there a bull market? I mean, ETH is back where it was when FTX started. And again, like I said earlier, the big fantasy is that, okay, well, you know, Michael Saylor is going to get liquidated. All the digital asset treasury companies are going to get liquidated, right? All the crypto stonks are going to crash. All the crypto is going to get, you know, completely market sold. That's the dream. Now, again, if there is a black swan in crypto, it's Zcash or Monero or Dash or who knows. some other like alt season, because everybody has been like, everyone has forgotten what alt season really looks like. Normally, alt season is led by ETH. Well, I don't think that's going to happen this time, but it could be Zcash, Monero, Dash. Who knows? It could be Bitcoin Cash. It could be these AI coins. You don't know. How many does it take? I mean, alt season 2021, top 5 movers, right? You had Matic, Layer 2s, ETH, Solana, Avalanche, and Phantom. That's what I remember from 2021. 2020 was like Chainlink, Uniswap, Compound, and Aave, along with ETH. That's just what comes to mind. You know, my boss got like 1,000x on Matic, went from like half a penny to $3. I mean, it was the only layer 2 at the time. So it's the only fill in the blank now. What is that? Is it Tau? So I'm arguing for crypto on a sector basis. So fear greed at 10 is a reflection of the fact that the market has never really gone up. Now, let's be fair. Let's take a moment to be fair. Everyone thinks that because fear greed at 10 means an automatic bottom. I think fear greed at 10 with Michael Saylor liquidation story can give you stability. But one of the things that people don't know is that in the history of stock market crashes, right, like a relative strength index, which is probably what fear greed is attached to, the biggest crashes that you have in this history of the stock market are when the stock market is oversold, or RSI, which ranges between 0 and 100, like fear greed, gets to like 15. 30 is oversold. But when it crashes and basically goes to 0, you can have, you know, serious events transpire after that. So can this thing fall apart? Sure. There is additional FUD coming out that Bitcoin is somehow affiliated with a group at a big technical college who received a specific department that received donations from a notorious criminal, basically leading to tweets that the notorious criminal funded Bitcoin. That's what normies will see. Now, the link is not direct. Money went to like, it looked like a science incubator. Okay. So that FUD is out there. So it's so convenient how they do all these things, right? And even to a certain degree, Michael Saylor created his own FUD with the Titanic picture. It's like trolling himself, laughing because his trading desk has probably got him protected, moving wallets around to create even more hysteria, right? Mike's like, oh, BlackRock does these things. I can play this game too. Everybody's hysterical. Everyone's hysterical. So yeah, fear greed by itself, yeah. Okay, and fear greed in equities did go to 0. So it can go from 10 to 0. But fear greed with all this intense FUD, like I had to look up this thing, like the bad person funded Bitcoin. I mean, that made like, you know, that was like a choking level of fear before I looked it up and tried to understand it. So you have every reason why it's a nightmare. Now, here's why it's not a nightmare. And people miss this. They completely missed it. So there's like a newspaper headline that's been clipped out and is all over Twitter, right? Fed meets with banks to discuss liquidity problem in money markets. Okay, so you have screens, I have screens, and we needed to drive over to the bank and have a meeting to discuss what exactly? Gee, we have losses on our books and we need money. You've been giving us money for a long time. What did the Fed need to go tell them? Oh, well, we're going to have to give you twice as much money now and push money into the system. So a rate cut is just the overnight lending rate between banks. What really matters is the tidal wave of money that they're going to have to put into the system to prevent an issue with banks. The employment situation is serious. Why? Because the credit card defaults, the car loan defaults, all this stuff like the food prices. Yeah, do you ever wonder why everyone's all of a sudden starting to act on food prices? Yeah, because the banks are calling up saying, hey, people are running up their cards and walking away. They're walking away, and that has to have an impact on banks at some point. I also think it's accurate to say that Warren Buffett taking a position in Google feels like what happened when Warren Buffett took a position in Goldman Sachs way back when in 2008, when Goldman Sachs really didn't need the money. Warren Buffett loaned him money and got preferred stock in return. But it was like a ceremonial thing to calm the market down. So ironically, again, because fear, greed in stocks is very high, right? Fear is high in stocks. Fear, greed in stocks is like 12. With the S&P at all-time high, they've got altitude sickness. So they've got Warren Buffett buying a little Google to try to settle everyone down. Crypto was going to go to zero. Supposedly, my narrative was, oh my God, I'm scared about the stock market. Okay, well, I mean, these things can still happen, but they haven't happened yet. And crypto is going to zero. It looks like it's going to go to zero. Now, my argument, which I discussed yesterday, which I'll only touch on very briefly, is that I think we're witnessing the unwind of long Bitcoin, short MicroStrategy. No, it's got nothing to do with Michael Saylor. It's got to do with huge, huge funds that put on derivatives bets that Michael Saylor's stock would crash and Bitcoin would hold in. Because Michael Saylor's stock was kind of crazy in terms of its valuation way back when. So, the short sellers can't pick on Apple and Nvidia, so they picked on MicroStrategy. They shorted MicroStrategy and they bought Bitcoin. And then Michael Saylor's stock strategy normalized to where, it's actually overdone. In other words, if that company is worth less than the Bitcoin it holds, Uncle Sam should come in and just buy the company. Just buy the company. It's like, yeah, we'll take all of that. We'll buy it. The strategic Bitcoin reserve. Boom. We don't have to go in and buy 700,000 Bitcoin. We can just buy the company, which again is my argument for why strategy doesn't go to zero. I don't know how anyone's ever going to get their hands on that much hard money. Now, the only reason why that would backfire is if something insane happened and I continue to believe the black swan is on the upside. That somehow if Zcash or Bitcoin forks that were designed for either privacy or transactions, whether they worked great or not, mooned indiscriminately. And Toby's been calling for a 2017 repeat. She was calling for a 2017 repeat for like 4 or 5 months. And I'm looking at Zcash. You see Arthur Hayes. Go on Arthur Hayes' Twitter feed. He knows exactly what could go on in Zcash. I mean, we gave our Patreon Platinum members like the daily closing level breakout point in Zcash. Like, here's where you maybe get a dip, and here's where you have to FOMO in. There's a lot of resistance at 700. People probably need to chill out. I'm a guess. And just wait to see what happens at 700. But again, every dip is being bought. Michael Saylor's trading desk could be hedging. People who own Bitcoin may start realizing that the way to hedge the Bitcoin is to own Zcash. Because what takes down Bitcoin? Legacy short sellers? FUD about who's using it and who's not using it? What takes down Bitcoin is the appearance of like a flippening or some kind of push. In 2021, it was like, well, ETH is definitely going to flip Bitcoin. There's no question about it. 2021, Bitcoin was considered a digital doorstop. Like my boss made fun of it. It's like, yeah, okay, Bitcoin. Yeah, all right, fine. But you want ETH because it does something. Okay, great. And everybody was making videos. Like when things got boring, BitBoy would make the flippening video where, ETH's market cap one day was going to be bigger than Bitcoin. Bitcoin goes to, 3.5 trillion. So much for that idea. Now everyone thinks Bitcoin is invincible. I personally think Bitcoin is fine. But where people could get completely smoked is if, how they say Bitcoin is gold and Ethereum is silver. Well, maybe Bitcoin is gold and Zcash is silver. Zcash is a Bitcoin fork after all. What happens if the entire planet has the wrong position? They got the right idea. They just all have the wrong position. Like I saw this thing, like Harvard bought like $300 million of the Bitcoin ETF. And I was like, what happens if they wake up one day and they're like, what's Zcash? Is that a grayscale ETN? How do we buy that? I mean, where is Zcash when that conversation occurs? The black swan is on the upside. Everyone, all these legacy guys, they're all looking for some kind of meltdown. They're all looking for a meltdown in equities, and they're not getting it. They get Warren Buffett buying Google. I'm like, wow, they really aren't going to let this thing go down, are they? Even if the Fed doesn't cut rates, it's never about whether they cut rates or they don't cut rates. They had rates high in 2023, and the Fed pushed so much money in the system for Brandon's last Merry Christmas in office. The market went straight up for 5 months. And they got to do it again because you got serious issues with banks, and that cannot happen. I mean, you have the chief executive melting down on social media. You have people melting down about the cost of food 10 days before like the food holiday in the United States. It's going to be all over the tape. It's going to be everywhere. The whole inflation thing is going to be back. Meanwhile, you got to start asking yourself, which is what I tell everybody, like, I know there's a case for like 92K. I know this is getting close to a level where from a chart perspective, you have to be intellectually honest that this thing could break and go from bull market to bear market, right? Those levels are in Patreon Platinum, kind of a super special TA report along with levels for Zcash. The simple fact of the matter is, if this thing was ever going to go to 200K, you would have to get everyone out, everyone. You would have to get everybody who was long to have the wrong position. And you would have to have some kind of event like a bank or a brokerage house or a currency or a government have problems. These things are out there. It's just that, no one's paying attention. So I just told you about all the FUD, right? All the FUD is known. It's on Twitter. I stayed up all night reading it. Really. Where's the bullish catalyst? Where's the bullish black swan? Is it Zcash? Is it the banks? Like, why is the Fed publishing? Why is it a published headline? Like, couldn't the Fed pick up the secret phone and be like, hey, guys, yeah, we're going to put a bunch of money in? Why is it a headline? Because they want everybody to know it's coming. And the market didn't see that today because they were too busy watching forced selling or just simple profit taking in Bitcoin from hedge funds who weren't even outright long Bitcoin. Now, it's a tightening effect for crypto because, the money comes out of the system. It doesn't go from Bitcoin to something else. It just leaves. So that's why it hurts. But again, you can feel the crypto ecosystem trying to find a bid in other cryptocurrencies, right? Like I work, I do some work with this project, AIntivirus. the legacy and privacy coins for John McAfee. I open up my phone and they've got videos of this guy everywhere from like 2018, where he's telling you to read the Declaration of Cryptocurrency Independence. Don't worry, I won't read it to you. I know it's Saturday morning. But the idea of cryptocurrency means Bitcoin falling apart and going into a bear market seems totally absurd. The Fed does not have to tighten. The Fed has to cut and print. So does every other central bank. So that's what wrecked the market in 2022, along with FTX. So if you want to have your bear market dream, you can have your bear market dream. If the charts break, I have to be intellectually honest, if the charts break. But if the charts don't break, and everybody's looking for a down move, when the black swan is actually on the upside. Now, the market doesn't bottom on a Friday or a Monday. That's like my little phrase. And the best thing that can happen is that you get kind of a neutral, maybe alts can pop off. But if like Bitcoin was stable, I would be so happy. Because the thing you don't want to have is some kind of spike up that fails. Like, beware the failed rally is in effect. You do not want to see that from a technical analysis point of view. Stability, a slump, having it sitting there and scaring you, terrific. Now, as I'm looking at the tape, I kind of hate the 10% rally in Litecoin. Not because I hate Litecoin, it's because I know when Litecoin and Zcash and Bitcoin Cash and Dash go up, that usually means the market is going to go down. Okay. So 10% up in Litecoin is the scariest thing on the tape today. Then again, if it's all being led by Zcash at 700, that is Zcash at 700. That's the monthly premium zone on LuxAlgo. That's a big deal, right? So, we can sit, we can wait, right? Okay. Breaking news from the Eagle King. Okay. He bought $20 million in bonds and at least $1 million in the bond ETF. Okay. So let me get this straight. Because I saw this. I saw this somewhere. So the president of the United States, who of course knows how the sausage gets made, financial markets, geopolitics, whatever, just decided to park money in treasuries. Now, I saw a Stonks guy say that, Stonks could crash, not crash. They're so lofty in terms of their valuation. You're not going to get anything out of Stonks, he thinks, for 10 years. 10 years. Normally, people buy bonds. Normally, people of the Orange Man's generation, they buy bonds when something's wrong. Something's wrong. There's an old-fashioned strategy that doesn't work anymore called risk parity, where you're long stocks and you're long bonds, because if stocks go down, bonds will go up, right? Bad things happen, rates fall, bonds go up. So the guy with real estate and meme coins and crypto hedge funds just bought bonds. Do you think there's a problem out there in the world? Oh, I think there's a problem out there in the world. And it's not whose name is in what document in the law enforcement issue, as serious as that is. And that get a lot of people in trouble and a lot of people got hurt. And that's honestly very regrettable. But if the president, the go-go guy selling sneakers and watches and crypto hedge funds just bought bonds, well, guess what, people? You just got told there's a problem out there. Bessent is sitting on $1 trillion in the Treasury general account. He could flood the market. He could buy debt. He could buy bonds himself. They could fund the FDIC. They could do stimulus checks. They could do D, all of the above. Patreon has this huge report about how Besant can use the Treasury general account. And me and Toby have been working on, when that flood of money comes in, what AI coins do you want to buy? Because anybody who thinks this AI trade is going away should get your Thanksgiving dinner and sit down. This will be the last normal year where you actually buy groceries from a human. You'll probably be buying groceries from a robot next year. That's it. It's simple as that. Now just say that to yourself and go, okay, so we're going into a bear market. All these altcoins are already at zero. Zcash has been dormant for 7 years, and you're going to get one little rally and that's it. In other words, everyone thinks we're going into a bear market. I actually think we're going into a bull market led by privacy and AI. But maybe I'm totally wacko. Maybe we're all right. Maybe the thing that everyone owns goes down and the things that nobody owns goes up. Because you know what? That's usually the way it works. Everyone's like, oh, I want to find Max Payne. Let's find Max Payne. Where's Max Payne? Guys sit around all day. What's Max Payne? What's the most negative thing that can happen so I can prosper and make money? It's the dumbest thing ever. But just based on supply and demand, the thing that everyone owns doesn't rally. That would be Nvidia. It could be Bitcoin, but I don't think so. But everyone owns Bitcoin and no one owns Zcash. No one owns XRP. Retail owns XRP, but nobody in the institutional world owns XRP. Nobody in the institutional world owns Solana either. XRP didn't really go down on this last kind of route. And XRP is sellable to institutions because there's a company behind it. I mean, Bitcoin has the name, ETH had the name, but that, ETH and that ETH ETF, that was a disaster when it came out. ETH went straight down. It went to its 2017 high at 1,200, 1,300. It was crazy. It went to zero. Basically, it's like ETH went to zero and it was over. Right before it went to 4,000. Like, people are acting like these things can't happen. They happened this year. It happened. Okay. So what's the next ETF parabolic? I don't know. It could be XRP. XRP should have gone down this week. It didn't. So if something's supposed to go down and it doesn't, what's it going to do? And they've got a brand spanking new shiny ETF. They got a new little toy to play with. Gee, we can buy a $4 trillion phone stock or a $4 trillion computer operating stock, or we can buy this new thing. I mean, how many new fun things have they played with over there in stonks? Why not? Why not? I mean, nobody outside of crypto owns XRP. Nobody. Now, of course, XRP retail, like I said, you can read the XRP news, the XRP made up news, the XRP fake theory, the XRP old news. I've seen guys reading old news for engagement farming, whatever. No one is thinking about what happens if anybody pours into that ETF. Nobody is thinking about, say, Zcash and XRP as possible market leaders. No one's even talking about Dash. Oh my God, these guys on the Dash Twitter feed, they're like blowing up. They're like, oh my God, look at us, look at us, look at us. Yeah, no one's looking at any of this stuff. No one's taking it seriously. Meanwhile, everybody in Legacy is trying to tell me that Michael Saylor is going to get liquidated. Michael Saylor is not going to get liquidated. He just may be wrong. He may be long the wrong form of Bitcoin. His problem may be lack of diversification. Can you imagine if these Bitcoin guys go, I think we need to diversify our Bitcoin holdings. We need to own Bitcoin and the Bitcoin forks. I mean, can you imagine somebody coming out and saying that? Oh my God. Why do you think the Winklevoss twins did like 50 million in Zcash? It's not clear, but they may have been the ones that took the market up to begin with. Okay. Hand of God says virtuals for the next 3 years. Leslie, welcome to the show. Quant. Toby loves that. Everyone's asking me about the ISO 20022 coins. I love those coins. More Dino coins. Dino coins forever. Antonio is into Cubic, an interesting group of guys that tried to 51% attack Monero, I think. Definitely interesting. Okay. Truth Seeking 8 is asking, is he buying bonds as a part of a PSYOP? Dude, why would you buy treasuries? The only reason to buy treasuries is you thought that the Fed was going to come in and do QE and buy treasuries. That's it. I mean, they've done everything they've done so far on basically moving the market around the way they wanted to. So if they've bought bonds, they're either going to put a new Fed chairman who's going to cut rates to zero, or there's a problem out there, or both, right? Truth Seeking 8, we're getting headlines now about the Bitcoin death cross. So I know I'm keeping Eagle King here late. Here's the thing. The death cross is when the 50-day moving average crosses the 200-day moving average, okay? And I try to stay away from anything that's like too emotional. I know that's kind of hysterical listening to me, but you know, when it's like, oh my God, it's the death cross. Now, the golden cross on the way up, particularly in stonks, is less emotional and more of a big deal, because when stonks make those rounding bottoms, you definitely take that seriously. But let me tell you something about the history of the death cross. I don't know about the history in Bitcoin, but I know that in equities, every time you get these moving averages crossing over, normally by the time it happens, the market is deeply oversold in fear mode. And then everybody goes, oh my God, the death cross. And you know what the market does after the death cross? It goes straight up. Even if it's a bear market, even if it's going down, even if it's going to hell in a handbasket, soon as these moving averages cross, boom. And the death cross is on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, boom. It goes straight up. Straight up. So again, you know, on one hand, be careful of fear greed, meaning an automatic bottom. It does if you have the FUD to go with it, which we definitely do. Definitely do. Along with the death cross, right? So the charts are broken. The fundamentals are broken. Michael Saylor is getting liquidated. Bitcoin is, we're going to have FTX all over again. This is going to be the worst bear market anyone's ever seen. Okay, so maybe they sell it on Monday. Maybe they have a final scare. Keep in mind, the orange man is massively long crypto. Just keep that in mind, right? Like, you know, orange man buys bonds. So if someone wants to know what the PSYOP is, here's the PSYOP. Orange man buys bonds. Why is that happening? Fed walks down the street with their, you know, with polyester suit and briefcases and knocks on the door of the bank and goes, hey guys, knock, knock. We want to talk about the liquidity situation. Wait, pose for a picture at the newspaper. You got to be kidding me. The Fed does all these things in secrecy if there's really a problem. They've effectively announced a massive flood of money, keeping in mind also that Besson is sitting on $1 trillion and he's a hedge fund guy. So we've all been told we're just paying attention to our bags. And, you know, I don't know what they're going to do to our bags on Sunday or Monday. I don't know if the people who are selling Bitcoin are done. You'll know when they're done because it'll go straight up. That's it. So we got all the ingredients. We just need the event or the imagination or something to kick in. And if not, well, the bears will crack it and we'll, I don't know, we'll talk about fishing or baseball or whatever you want to talk about on the show. But until that happens, the Declaration of Cryptocurrency Independence is on my mind. Welcoming members like Spartan Colonel, Gaseous Clay, the Hand of God, welcome. Crypto Scam members, Gaseous Clay hitting on those emojis, Welcome. Right? People are sending each other jewels. Thank you. Thank you for using the functionality. Member request for QNT. Let's see what the screen share looks like on the small screen. Who knows? For our YouTube members, we'll do anything. For the Spartans from Patreon, we will hook you up. They get everything before the free people get everything. Okay. So QNT is in a predicament. It is like literally caught in between support and resistance at 90. It's pinned. I can't remember the last time I saw anything like that. Now, the good news about QNT is there's a buy signal here. So until they force you out, stay with it. Just stay with it. Because this is ISO 20022. This is XRP's cousin. And one good use of this is one thing I just try to tell people, because everyone's telling me that, oh, we're going into a bear market. Really? Okay. Well, you know, what's happened in QNT that would make you think it was a bull market to begin with? Nothing has happened here. This is like completely dormant. This is the weekly chart of QNT. Can you point to the bull market for me? Because I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing anything. This is 2021, right? QNT is at $300, and right now it's at 89. Every single altcoin that's worth anything looks exactly like that. Okay. That was a long monologue. I am your host, Bill Noble. We will see you next time.